In our allopathic or traditional veterinary training, we're taught to name it, blame it, and then come up with a pharmaceutical or a treatment. But we're not taught to identify the root cause of the problem. And that's where the difference lies. I actually do what I call bioregulatory medicine, which is actually understanding the biology of the body so that we can identify what's going wrong.
Welcome to the Pet Care Report podcast by Pet Summits. Here's your natural dog healthcare host, Alora McKinley.
G'day pet lovers, thanks for joining me again for another episode. Joining us today is Dr. Marlene Siegel, who after being told by an equine veterinarian that there was no options to heal her horse, she set out to prove them wrong. With nearly 40 years of experience, she founded Pascoe Veterinary Medical Centre, offering the widest range of alternative therapies and detox services. An international speaker and entrepreneur, Dr. Siegel also created EvoLoveRaw.com, a raw pet food and supplement company, and is launching Spores Family Wellness in 2025. Connect with her at drmarlenesiegel.com. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Siegel.
Thank you, Alora. It's so nice to be here.
Congratulations on all your amazing work setting up Pascoe Veterinary Medical Centre. That sounds just absolutely fabulous. For those that may not be familiar with integrative veterinary medicine, can you explain what it is and how it combines traditional therapies and alternative therapies to enhance a dog's health?
Fabulous question. So in our allopathic or traditional veterinary training, we're taught to name it, blame it, and then come up with a pharmaceutical or a treatment. But we're not taught to identify the root cause of the problem. And that's where the difference lies. I actually do what I call bioregulatory medicine, which is actually understanding the biology of the body so that we can identify what's going wrong. Is there a deficiency? Is there a toxicity? Usually it's a combination. And by identifying what's either deficient or toxic, then we can actually help to repair the biology, the innate intelligence of the body, and then the body goes on to heal. What we practice in our allopathic medicine, I call it symptom suppression, because you have a symptom and then you squash it. And we do that in our human world as well. I think we're all familiar with getting a headache. And what's the first thing we do? We take an aspirin. Well, I don't anymore, but there was the day where that's what we thought we should do. And we never questioned why we got the headache or diarrhea for people. They go out and they take their Imodium or their symptom suppression without ever questioning why is the body actually having diarrhea. That's a major organ of elimination. So with the pets, they do talk to us. A lot of people go, well, your pets can't talk to you. No, they do. You just have to be able to listen in their language. But the most important part that I want to distinguish is helping pet parents to understand that a symptom is like the dash light coming on in your car. It's saying there's a problem. And it's okay to treat the symptom. We certainly want our patients to be comfortable, but we don't want to stop there. We want to investigate and find out what are we doing that's actually causing the body to create the symptom so then we can actually fix the underlying problem.
And I know in your practice, you talk about 6 steps to healing. Could you talk us through what those 6 steps are and how they contribute to shifting a dog from just surviving to truly thriving?
If people would just follow these 6 principles and embrace a good portion of it, it would literally transform their lives and the lives of their pet. So step number 1, we have to stop doing the things that are causing the dis-ease. So mind you, I'm saying the word dis-ease with a hyphen between the D-I-S and the E-A-S-E because I don't believe there's actually disease in the world. I think there is dis-ease, meaning that the body is just not in balance. So step number 1, when we talk about stopping the pollution or stop doing the things that are causing the problem, there are many things that fall under this category. Number 1, we have to feed these animals a species appropriate diet. And that's what they were biologically designed to eat. Dogs and cats are carnivores. Cats are literally obligate carnivores. They have no dietary requirement for carbohydrates. So we're feeding these animals processed foods, which are heated at high temperatures. The enzymes that used to be in raw meat that was available to help the animal digest is no longer present. If they're feeding a kibble diet, it's devoid of moisture. And then they add all kinds of synthetic vitamins and minerals and preservatives. And if it is not an organic diet, then it's going to have genetically modified ingredients in it as well. And all of that contributes to that dis-ease that we're seeing. We talk about water. I could spend hours talking about water, but water should be filtered, highly filtered, structured. And in a perfect world, we add molecular hydrogen to that water to give it more of an antioxidant effect. And then we look at the electromagnetic pollution that's coming from our cell phones, our computers, our routers, and 5G. I'm sure even where you live, 5G is everywhere now. And it is really devastating to the fourth phase of water, which again, we could talk about water, but the fourth phase of water is a type of water that we have in our bodies and our pets have in their bodies. And it is actually different than the water that comes out of the tap. We talk about, we're made of 70% water, but it is not the water that comes out of the tap. It is a different structure. It's actually a gel. The electromagnetic pollution disrupts that and collapses that water, that fourth phase water, and then the body can't function very well. And then we looked at the things that you wash your clothing in, the xenoestrogens or hormone disrupting elements that are in cleaners and laundry soaps and shampoos. We want to make sure that's not affecting our pets as well. And the most important is actually the ants that live in our brains, our pet parent brains. And those are automatic negative thoughts. Because when we are thinking negative thoughts and we're under stress and we're angry and frustrated or bitter and shameful, whatever it is, all those negative thoughts create neurotransmitters as a consequence. And our pets entrain to those neurotransmitters. They're entraining to those energies. So we're basically giving off this signal that says super bad danger out there. You need to stay in a high sympathetic tone so that you can run away from the bear or the tiger. They don't know why there's danger out there. They just feel it from us. And we need to heal in a parasympathetic state. That's the opposite of sympathetic. That's where we rest, repair, digest, detoxify, and reproduce. And it makes sense. If you are in imminent danger of being killed, you really don't care if you have to go to the bathroom, you're not hungry, and you're not thinking about who you're going to have sex with. So the animals are the same way. They're only in a state of fight, flight, but when they stay there all the time, then their bodies can't rest, repair, and regenerate and detoxify. So that's really important to be thinking about that. That's all step number one. And the cool part is that doesn't cost anything. That is really becoming conscious and aware of your lifestyle. What are the epigenetic factors that you are creating that are affecting you and your pets? Now, so number two is making sure that we supply all the essential nutrients that the body needs to have in order to function. Now, I think it's really amazing that this earth suit that we have is incredibly adept at producing almost everything that we need, except for the essential nutrients. And it's a small number of amino acids, vitamins, minerals, and fatty acids that the body cannot produce on its own. We have to eat them in our diet. Well, I'm sure worldwide people recognize that the food that we're eating, even if it's organic, is nutrient depleted because our farming practices have not been sustainable. They've not been regenerative. And I live in a food farm. I literally have a forest around my house and I grow all my fruits and vegetables. However, even after 15 years of developing healthy soil, I don't know what my soil is deficient in. So I just make sure for my personal body that I'm taking my essential nutrients, the vitamins, minerals, fatty acids, and amino acids that my body needs. And I don't have to wonder, are they in my food or not? I just make sure I supply them. And the same applies for our animals. We can't take the risk of them being deficient because that leads to our dis-ease. And then number three is healing the gut. And I think most people are familiar with the term leaky gut. Our gut has a lining. I'm going to make it equate to a piece of cheesecloth because most people know what cheesecloth is. And when you're making chicken soup and you have all your vegetables and your herbs and everything in there, and then it's time to strain it. So you're going to take and put the cheesecloth over the pot and you're going to pour the juice out so that all you have is the broth and all the materials are going to be caught in the cheesecloth. But if somebody punched holes in that cheesecloth, they literally took a pen and just boom, 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 and made all these holes in there and ripped pieces of it, then when you went to strain that soup, you're going to have pieces of whatever was in that soup that can fit through that hole fall into your soup. And that's what's happening in our body. Our gut lining is designed to separate the outside world, meaning the tube that connects your mouth and your anus. All of that is the outside world from one end to the other. The inside world is your internal body. So the particles that were not supposed to come into the body are supposed to be caught by this intact gut membrane. And then the right nutrients that fit through those tight junctions are allowed to come into the body. They're transported by the bloodstream to the liver, and the liver is going to warehouse the amino acids, the fatty acids, the vitamins, the minerals, all the things that it needs in order to be able to build and repair and to grow. But when we cause damage into that lining, then a lot of things come through that aren't supposed to. Even undigested food comes into the body, and the body thinks that's foreign material. It doesn't recognize it as self. And so it mounts an inflammatory response. Wow, this is a mini crash course, guys. I hope you're enjoying this. So when the body senses an invader, it mounts an inflammatory response. We call it the cytokine storm. And it's all of these mediators that produce inflammation to go out and kill the invader. Now, that's a wonderful thing. And that's how we were designed to function. But we weren't designed to function 24/7. There should have been a time where they took care of the invader. Now there's no more invader. And now the body goes back into its parasympathetic state and it repairs. But in our modern world, the invader is coming in nonstop every day, every bite of every meal, and stress is all day long. So we really never have a chance to let our bodies heal. That means inflammation is happening all the time. And inflammation, tying it all together, is the underpinning of all dis-ease. No matter where it came from, ultimately we produce inflammation that starts a cascade of effects that leads to dis-ease. That was number 3. Number 4 is detoxification. So our bodies and our pets' bodies have 6 organs of elimination: the kidney, the colon, the lungs, the liver, the skin, and the lymphatics. Now, don't be blaming your veterinarian because they don't remember all of this, because we weren't taught to think about the organs of elimination as a detoxification mechanism. Sadly, we live in a world that is so toxic. There's over 100,000 toxins, synthetic toxins, that have been developed since World War II. It's 1942. And in that time, the numbers are extraordinarily high. It's in our drinking water. It's in the rain. It's in the food that we're eating. We just can't get away from it. And our organs of elimination are becoming overwhelmed, and they're not able to keep up with all the stuff that is happening. As a consequence, it leads to the accumulation of products that shouldn't be in the body, and we start seeing dis-ease. So we have specific things that we can do to help those organs of elimination. And the number 5 is the mitochondria. These are little organelles that have become adapted with our bodies, and they live in our cells. We have trillions of them, and they do 2 major things. Most people know that they make the energy that we use to actually function. Like literally, that's the energy that we use to drive our metabolism and have the energy to get up and go to work and have fun and whatever we want to do. But they also are the communication network between themselves and the microbiome, all those organisms that live in and on us. These guys are communicating through that structured water that I mentioned in the beginning. They have a communication highway. So the mitochondria are sensing things that are happening from the neurochemicals that we're producing and the emotions that we're creating. And then they communicate to the microbiome, and they're turning on and turning off gene expression based on what they're experiencing. So it's really important that we become a lot more conscious and aware of what are we thinking? How are we behaving? Are we sleeping? Are we eating species appropriate? Are we eating healthy? And what are we doing to help our organs detox? And then number 6, which is not in my ebook, but I do like to talk about it, are trapped emotions. And trapped emotions are associated with all dis-ease. In Chinese medicine, it's very popular to know that if you have a problem in your liver, then the emotion associated with the liver is anger. And the kidneys and the bladder, the emotion associated with that is fear. So we know that emotions play a really big role in how we express dis-ease. And the same is true for our pets as well.
Wow, you've covered so much there.
I do this every day.
Yeah, no, hopefully all our listeners were taking notes so they can go back. But in terms of maybe just little steps that people can do in their daily routine, what are some practical examples of how these steps can be applied?
So number one is become empowered through education. And I can't stress that enough, because in the world that we live in with social media and the internet, there is a massive amount of noise and everybody has an opinion. I equate it to buttholes, bungee holes. Everybody has one. Some stink worse than others. But when you're trying to siphon through all of this information, how do you know what's good? How do you know what's not good? How do you know what's even true? Right? It's very hard to navigate that. So step number one is find a good source, somebody that you resonate with. It could be me. I would love that. And take some courses with that individual and start to really learn. Don't be taking courses from the neighbor or the guy who is just an influencer. Though they may not really understand good medicine and good biology. You want to know somebody understands bioregulatory medicine. How does the body really work? And that's step number one, because otherwise, when somebody says, oh, my dog was itchy and I use product XYZ, well, you're going to run out there and buy product XYZ. And maybe there's xenoestrogen in that product. Maybe you're actually doing more harm than good. And you're certainly not addressing the root cause of the problem. So truly, step number one is get educated. I have a wonderful course that covers all 6 principles, but a really deep dive. And that helps people to know what testing should I have? What supplements should I have? What diet should I be feeding? These are all really important things, because if you're going to start somewhere, you want to start with step number one, learning what is causing the problems that you're experiencing. And nowadays we all talk about longevity, right? And my motto is these animals should live into their 30s. So I say 20 and beyond is really realistic. My cat transitioned at 23 and he was absolutely healthy to the last week of his life. And he wasn't a raw eater until he was about 10 years old, because I didn't know better. So anybody that's out there that's starting to feel guilty, like, oh, I should have known and I've been doing the wrong things. No, everything happens in divine timing. You're listening to this podcast at this time in your life because you're ready. So just know everything is divine timing and there's never a wrong time to start. Now is the best time, and just embrace it. If I look back at my first 25 years of veterinary medicine and the things, I didn't do anything bad. I just didn't do them as good as I should have because I didn't know. I had to have something push me out of my comfort zone and go, whoa, you need to wake up and step up to the plate and, really understand this. I had no idea how much I was missing until I found out how much I was missing. So you got to know more to do better. So know better, do better. And you only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yep. And then what are some other practical steps that owners can do other than just educate themselves?
So looking for species appropriate diet, understanding what clean water is. So food and water are those first 2 basic steps. So step number 1, understanding what a species appropriate diet is. And always it should be grass fed, grass finished, because a grass fed label can be accurate if that animal that was in that can or bag or whatever was outside for 1 day. And then if they're back on a feedlot and they're fed genetically modified corn, it still can say grass fed, but grass fed, grass finished and organic would mean that they have not been fed any genetically modified foods. So that would be step number 1. Food and water. You've just got to start there. And once you get that dialed in, and it's not easy. Sometimes you have to do a lot of undoing, helping to heal the gut so these animals feel better. So that would be the first 2 steps to take. And then looking at your environment. Are you using toxic cleaners? Is everything Wi-Fi and smart appliances in your home really bad? You need to be doing something to mitigate the EMF. If you can't get rid of your smart appliances and you can't turn off your Wi-Fi, then we have devices that are non-electric, but they help to change the incoherent frequencies in the house to coherent frequencies. So it's things like that. That's totally in your control, and it's not really expensive. It's just making different choices. So when you go to the grocery store and you're going to buy your laundry soap, if it's not a healthy soap, it's full of chemicals and xenoestrogens and, things that are going to be harmful to your skin, then you just buy a different product. So, you're already spending it, and you're already spending money on dog food and cat food. Now just changing to something that's healthier. If it's raw, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but for a cat and a dog under 50 pounds, no brainer. It's really not a big difference. Compared to what you spend in broke care, healthcare is a wonderful option.
Absolutely. I wish my dogs were a little bit cheaper to feed, but that's okay. And now...
And then the right supplements, making sure it's not about every wonderful product that's out there. Curcumin, yes, it's wonderful. It's not on the list of essential nutrients. So focus on the ones that are essential, because the body has to have those. And again, I have a product line that I worked on to make sure that it was organic, that there were no synthetics in there, that it was actually absorbable by the body. It was in a form that the body would recognize and be healthy. And so you have to, if you just go to my website and just use me as the benchmark and make sure whatever you're using is as good as that or better, then now you're really going somewhere and being very positive. But you just have to have those essential nutrients. Gut health, easy. It's just once you stop doing the things that are causing damage, and then using some probiotics and prebiotics. I love fermented foods, and you can make them at home or you can buy them in the store, but they have to be raw and they have to be organic. So sauerkraut, maybe just an easy start. You eat the vegetable part of the sauerkraut and you give the animals the juice. Everything should be low and slow. In other words, when you're starting to make changes, do it very gradually, a little bit at a time, getting rid of the things that are not healthy and adding in the things that are healthy.
Yep. I love that idea that, it doesn't have to be all at once, but maybe just one thing at a time when we do change stuff in our dog's life. Now, when an owner changes stuff, how long should they wait before maybe they see a change?
Well, we see owners when they make a diet and water change, they see results or changes within a few days. It's really remarkable. The body is so resilient and the body has so much desire to be in balance that as soon as you quit damaging it, it starts to heal itself if it has the ability to. I want to go back for a second because you said, where do we start? I'm going to give you guys a biohack here that will make it easier. When you're listening to podcasts, or if you're taking, I have free modules as well, whatever you're taking to learn, take a piece of paper and you fold it in half. Now, you're going to label one side column A and the other side column B. Column A are all the things that you're learning that you should be doing, but you haven't learned to do them yet. You haven't implemented them into your lifestyle or your pets. Column B are all the things that you're learning that you should not be doing, but you still are because you haven't learned what to do instead. And non-judgmental, you're just going through and listing everything. Column A, the things you should be doing. Column B, the things you should not be doing. And then you go back and you pick one thing from column A and you start doing it. Usually they say it takes 21 times or 21 days until something is a habit, because you want this to be a habit. This is not what you do. This becomes who you are. And so once it becomes comfortable and it's just who you are and you don't think about it, then you go back and you pick the next thing from the list and you incorporate that. So one thing that you're starting, one thing that you're stopping. And before you know it, you've made massive changes in your health and your pet's health and your life.
I love that. That's such a great, simple tip. What are some improvements that owners are seeing in their pets when they do make these little changes?
Wow. I can tell you itching resolves. So what we call allergies can diminish and actually go away, because, the symptom suppression part is atopica and steroids and cytopoint. Those are all symptom suppression. They're not fixing the problem. And most pet owners will raise their hand right now and say, yeah, I tried that and it worked initially and now it's not working anymore. So now you have to come up with the bigger pill and the bigger injection and the more toxic product because you haven't fixed the root cause of the problem. The body keeps saying, wow, they missed the point. Let me go back and get a little louder and a little louder and a little louder. And then the loudest one is ultimate degeneration, like cancer. We see cancer resolutions when we make our protocol changes. Now, that is not done with just food and water. There's certainly a lot of other things that have to happen in there. But when we fix the biology, the body can go back to healing. Gastrointestinal diseases, autoimmune diseases, vomiting, diarrhea. These are the things that people see most commonly, even obesity. And we're at the point now where nearly 100% of the animals that we're seeing in clinical practice have some form of chronic illness, whether it's vomiting, diarrhea, obesity, autoimmune disease, cancer, osteoarthritis. Oh my gosh, we're seeing dogs with their osteoarthritis markers, that's arthritis, under the age of 2. And they're already showing, based on blood work, that they have active osteoarthritis. So we're not talking old age diseases anymore. We're seeing cancer in dogs under 2 years of age and cats. So we have to do something different. Einstein said insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. That's what we just talked about.
Is it ever too late, do you think, to make these changes?
Never too late. Never too late. You just start where you're at and you start making those changes. If you are that absolute go-getter kind of person, then maybe take 2 things off the list to start on the A and 2 things to stop on the B. And sometimes it's the same thing, like just even getting rid of processed foods. Processed foods would be on column B. We don't want to be feeding processed foods, and we want to feed a species appropriate living food. So right there, that's something in A and something in B that you've just done by making one change.
Now, what is one tip that you think people should take away from this episode? I know we discussed so much, but just one thing.
You have the power to heal, and you have the ability to be the hero of your pet's life and their health journey. And we don't have to accept the norm where animals are dying right now 7 years shorter than they did 20 years ago. We do not have to accept that. And we don't have to accept that the marketing industry, the food industry, the product industry, we don't have to accept what they're serving us in the way of toxicity. Once we know better and we can do better, we spend our dollars on products that are actually going to help us and our pets live a longer, healthier life. It can't get more simple than that, but you have to take action. You have to be empowered and you have to take control. Like there's no one out there that's going to do it for you. You have to take action. And that means being responsible for your outcomes. No one's going to do it for you. And it's not hard. It's a little different because you want to be able to go out to eat dinner in a restaurant and not question what's in your food. I can't do that anymore because now it is a habit for me that I'm going to question what are they putting on my plate. And if it's something that I'm not willing to eat, canola oil or bad seed oils or gluten, I won't eat that. I will leave the restaurant if they have nothing that they can feed me. So we all have to make choices. It's that line in the sand. How far are you willing to go? But you can't unknow, you can't unsee. And you can ignore it, but you can't unknow it and you can't unsee it. So once you understand what actually makes health, then take your column A, column B, and start making little baby steps to get there. And you don't want to go back. I see people that have had chronic illnesses, and we're talking on the people side, and they go, now that I've healed myself, I don't want to go back to that. That's why I'm so set on what I do. I didn't think I had a gluten intolerance. I had a lot of allergies my whole life. But when I cut gluten out, my allergies went away. I don't want to go back to having a sneezing rag all day long and being stuffy and can't breathe through my nose. I don't want to go back to that. So I would rather live a lifestyle where I help my body stay healthy. And I'm almost 70 years old. I have no health challenges whatsoever, thank God. And, but I work at that. I don't do things that are going to be causing dis-ease in my body. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And knowledge is power at the end of the day. I think that's why we do these podcasts. And that's why we are so passionate about teaching pet parents, because they just don't know. And I think so many people look to their local vet maybe who says, maybe desex at 6 months and here's the good dry food you should feed. And that's what they go off. So providing these platforms is really important.
That's where knowledge, what you're doing in having people like myself get on, and don't blame your veterinarian. Veterinarians are the greatest people on this planet. They have the kindest, most compassionate hearts, and they mean well, but they weren't taught that way. So until they have some kind of a life-altering experience like I had that said, no, you have to learn better so you can do better. And then once I started opening my eyes and I started becoming conscious, I couldn't go back. I cannot consciously think of a pet parent and say, oh, it's okay to feed your pet a kibble diet. I can't do that. Now, there's a rare person who will get angry with me and leave my practice and leave me a 1-star review. God bless them. They're entitled to that. They're not ready. They're not ready to make changes. And we're good with that. I can't help everybody in the world. I am looking for those pet parents that are awakening and they're realizing that maybe some of the things that they're doing are creating the problems for their pets and they want to do better. It's their soul pet and they want to do the most positive things that they can for that animal. Those are the people that I'm trying to reach.
Thank you so much, Dr. Siegel, for your time today. You've taught us so much. Now, if our listeners want to find more about you and maybe some of your courses that you do, where can they find that information?
Everything is at drmarlenesiegel.com. And I have a free PDF at holistichealingvet.com or at the drmarlenesiegel.com site. It's available in both places. And they can just download that for free. That's the 6 steps to healing. It's not super deep dive, but it's a lot. You could get through that. You're going to make massive changes. And then I would love to connect with more and more people so that we become the tribe. And in the support as a community, we can have a lot more say and a lot more power and be supported. So I love that.
Lovely. Thank you. And I'll put some links down in the show notes so our listeners can find that very easily. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you on today.
It was my honor. Thank you so much.
And for our listeners, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review if you got a question. Go ahead and ask it. And I'll see you again for another episode next time.